Welcome back to another episode of Sundays Are for the Girls. Today we have another highly successful, empowering, and inspirational guest, to say the least. If I can go into details on all of her accolades, I'd be speaking for the next several hours. Just to give you a quick few highlights, she's a two-time All-American selection, four-time All-Atlantic Coast Conference honoree, finalist for the 1991 Herman Trophy. It doesn't end there. She's had 55 caps representing the U.S. women's national team. She was a member of the 1995 Women's World Cup team. She's played professionally on a few teams and was inducted into the Virginia DC Soccer Hall of Fame. She's got 343 career victories as a coach and ranked 16th all-time in win percentage among active coaches. She won an NCAA national championship in 2014 with the UCLA Women's soccer team. So without further ado, let's hear it for the current UCLA women's coach, Amanda Cromwell.
Thank you.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you again for being here.
Yeah. Nice to hear all those things. I kind of forget some of them. Yeah, it's so great. Thanks so much for joining us today, Amanda. I don't know if you know much about our organization, but Bellatech, obviously, we're in the very beginning stages of our club development here. You have developed such a program at UCLA. I'm hoping this is going to be a very enlightening conversation, obviously for our subscribers, but for ourselves as well. So yeah, we really appreciate your time today, and I'm very excited to meet you after, doing all of this research for this conversation. I mean, it's been an incredible just to read about you. So to now have this conversation with you today, I think that it's going to be cool. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're just going to dive straight into it. We really just want to hear a quick intro and about, how you got into the soccer world from the very, very first start. So really like from a young age, when did you begin, and where are you from, and how did you acclimate back in the day to really start loving soccer?
Yeah, grew up in Virginia. Northern Virginia was one of the early hot spots for soccer back in the day when there weren't a whole lot of hot spots, but definitely had the environment to even, as a 5-6-year-old, played with boys on they call them the house league teams, and just loved being outside and playing everything else. I played basketball growing up, played a little bit of tennis, and but just, I loved soccer. I played with my brothers in the front yard. That's probably the earliest I ever played, but just kept playing, and thankfully I was in an area that high school was very strong in Northern Virginia. Soccer, my clubs were very strong, and the East Coast scene, going up to tournaments in New Jersey or New York, and even Ohio at that point was getting stronger. So I think I just, was really fortunate to be in a place where the sport was supported with women and young girls playing. And obviously my parents loved it and supported me in that. And so I played high school basketball and soccer and club and AAU basketball and all that stuff. And then, got a scholarship and I went to the University of Virginia.
I think that's super interesting. I love hearing that. I think we all have kind of a similar background where we start playing with our brothers. And I think from a young age, it teaches us to be so competitive because of course it's that natural flow with, boys. You always want to just be with the boys, running with the boys, right? It's that stipulation that's kind of put onto us. And so I think it's great though. It creates this competitive human being and this innate nature to just always want to be the best. So do you feel like that's something that kind of pushed you to always want to compete from just an early age, being around your brother and playing in the front yard?
Well, yeah, I'm the youngest of 5, so I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. So just that environment in itself, you have to survive as the youngest.
Absolutely.
You got to find your food and scrap and fight. And, it wasn't just playing soccer, it was everything. It's just a competitive environment, I think, when you have a big family, and whether you're playing board games and Monopoly or Atari back in the day. So yeah, it was, all my siblings attributed to my competitive nature. My dad would take me out. I'd go shoot baskets with my dad, and he was always big into like being a team manager for like my soccer teams. Like when I was really little, he was one of the assistant coaches, but he never played soccer, but he loved that, all my siblings were really athletic and competitive, some doing different sports. So I definitely had that from my whole family, not just my brothers.
Yeah, I can't help but relate to that myself, obviously, but this is not about me today. And so let's segue into your time at University of Virginia, though, because yeah, your success there was just unreal. You were a 2-time All-American, 4-time All-Conference selection, a consortium of other, accolades we could list off. But something that I'm just really curious about of your time there was, so like you said, there was this hub for girls soccer, women's soccer in Virginia. How were you able to separate yourself from the team to get those kind of accolades? But not only that, but also creating that cohesive team environment without fully, like bullying other people, you know what I mean? I think it's a really important thing to be able to separate yourself and be that great athlete. So how do you think that you could maybe advise other women to do the same?
Yeah, I think, back in the day, there definitely, how you led was very scrutinized. Like, if you were too bossy or too competitive, there's like some of the teammates may be like, hey, why are you trying so hard? We just want to be like even keel and keep it chill. I'm like, no, that would never sit with me. So I always pushed myself and my teammates to be better. And I think I put myself in environments where that was embraced. So I wasn't on a club team that would not embrace that. That wouldn't fly with me. My club coaches, another thing, growing up, I had a lot of female coaches, which was very rare back then. My high school coach was female, both soccer and basketball. My club coach, I had male at first, and then it was a male-female married couple. And then my college coach was also female. So, I had, and also my mom was, people in my family, and my mom was a vice president of Marymount University. So I had women in my life that were strong-willed go-getters, and so I was just used to being around that. And in the team environment, I was definitely demanding of my teammates, sometimes overly critical, and I realized that. I have a joke with one of my UVA teammates. She lives out here now, and she still remembers something I yelled at her in a game, like about square balls, and because it got picked off. I think it was against UNC. Someone like Christine Lilly or someone picked it off, and they went and scored on a counterattack. And I'm like, no more bleep, 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 square balls, So I definitely, had that side to me, but I wouldn't expect anything from my teammates I didn't expect from myself. So I think they respected that. And they saw my effort.
Yeah, completely. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, it's that competitive nature, you can't just shut it off, and it's hard for, I think, anyone who has that to just kind of just play an even field and just have fun with it all the time. I think that no matter what you're doing, practices, anything, you've got to just go all out. So that's awesome, and that obviously goes to tell you why you've been able to separate yourself and been that top quality player. During your time in Virginia, were there like any, I'm sure you've faced plenty of, a ton of adversities, but was there anything in particular that you remember that was something that you'd say was specifically a tough adversity for you to kind of get through during your college career?
Dealing with injuries. That's always how I tore cartilage playing basketball in high school. So I got a scope, just different injuries in college. I was lucky though. I did an ACL, but not until after college, when I was playing with the national team. So that's where you kind of really learn how to overcome an injury. Stuff in college that you have to overcome. And I look back now, I can't, all the resources we have now and all the gear we get, and how these players are pampered. Like we had hand-me-downs from the men's team. We didn't have a proper locker room. We had the public locker room that people that came to use the pool at UVA would come in there and be in the same locker room. And the boys had this nice, wood paneled lockers with a nice TV. And so we didn't have much. And Virginia soccer only started varsity I think the year or two before I got there. So a lot of colleges were just sponsoring soccer as women's soccer as an NCAA sport. So there weren't as many choices. And there's over 320 schools now. I think back then, I don't know what the number was, but to put it in perspective, we have the full 64 tournament for postseason. Back when I played, it was 12. 12 made it to the postseason. So
Yeah.
that was just something.
Yeah, so there's obviously, a lot of daily things that you're faced with, things that we kind of might overlook. We are definitely pampered, especially here. We've all played overseas, and I think we still see that, but hopefully the sport will grow and get better in that sense with equality. I think as youth players, like in high school and stuff, we tend to, push and encourage them to apply for colleges really early on in their youth career and reach out to all these college coaches and do all these things to kind of set up a plan for yourself during college. Did you know what you were going to do after? And if so, how was your transition from your college playing career and going into playing professionally for you?
Well, there was no professional league when I was in college, so I was playing national team, and that was my post-college playing. Yeah, so I basically just stayed around the game because I was playing national team. So, and that's why I stayed around coaching, because I helped out like as a grad assistant at Virginia right when I graduated, and was taking some classes and studying for getting ready to take my MCATs. I didn't take them right away, but then what was it? It was funny because we were qualifying for the '95 World Cup. We were up in Canada qualifying, and I took my MCATs while during qualification at Callister College up there. So that was still my goal, was to continue schooling and not necessarily playing pro wasn't an issue at that point because there wasn't a pro league. So it was just national team, and there were some of those W League teams I played with, and I did go to Sweden and play for a season there, which was really cool at Stockholm for Hammarby. But otherwise, I was kind of just planning on the kind of what to do post soccer, really.
Right. Kind of touch and go and just kind of figuring it out. I think it's pretty impressive. I mean, you were obviously studying to, be a doctor, but then you're also balancing being on the national team, still wanting to play, and then also devoting, your time to also be an assistant. I mean, that's a lot to balance. And so I think that's something that's really intriguing with a lot of driven female role models that I've, come across in my life, is the fact that they're just doers. They want to do and push themselves to the brink, no matter what their pathway in life is, whether they're trying to figure out, whether they're trying to transition from one career to the next. So it's really, really cool that the mindset that you had instilled in you, you were still trying to go for something. But along the way, you were also still tied back to soccer. So it's really impressive to me, the ability for people to balance those things. So it's really cool to hear that. But I do want to touch a little bit more about your experience during the '96 Olympics. Of course, that probably sticks out to you a bit. What's it like to have a gold medal? I think that's pretty awesome on the outside, but we kind of want to hear your experience during the '96 Olympics and stuff, and that road and how that feels.
Well, I don't know if you know what happened before. Do you know what happened 6 months prior to the '96 Olympics? That's when I tore my ACL.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a whole story behind here. That's what I thought you were asking at me at first. You don't know the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's February. We're in training. We're scrimmaging. We're in camp. We're scrimmaging in Denmark or somebody. And I go down with the ACL. And the Olympics, I think, was end of June starting or something like that. So of course I was crushed and thinking my Olympic hopes were over. One of my college teammates father's was a orthopedic surgeon in Birmingham with that whole group that like Dr. Clancy, but then Dr. Andrews did a lot of people's shoulders and elbows. Like Troy Aikman went there, and Bo Jackson went there for his hip, and all these pro athletes. And my college teammate's father was like less than 6 months before the Olympics. Fun freezing.
Yeah, Amanda, I don't know if you can hear us. You're cutting in and out and freezing a bit.
Did I freeze again?
You're good now.
Okay. I just changed over to a different internet. So basically I was on a mission to try to get back when the Olympics were in June, and I ended up rehabbing like it was my job, because it really was at that point. And I got back in 3 months. I was playing full 3 months after my surgery. I was in back in camp in May. Tony DeChico was a coach at the time. He said, if you can get back, we'll invite you back down to camp. And so it was one of those. So the whole process of it was it's really a cool story. What stinks about a little bittersweet at the end, there was only a 16-player roster, and I was one of 4 alternates. So I was on the 20-player roster and made it back to get picked as an alternate. With a 16-player roster, I think Tony after the fact told me along the lines like, I should have picked you for the 16, but with someone coming off an ACL, it's a little risky to put them on the roster. But that we were basically there in case someone got injured, and we would be brought into the main roster. But your question about a medal is always interesting, because I have a gold medal ring, but alternates didn't get medals. So I was there for all of it. I didn't play in the games, but I was celebrating the gold medal victory on that field and running around like crazy with my teammates. So it was interesting time in my life, and talk about overcoming and figuring things out. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's quite impressive to me. And although it's not the full story that you'll want, I think from it shows how much character you have. Even getting back in 3 months, I don't think I've even ever heard of that before. And it shows the respect that Chico had for you. I think that's amazing. Kind of got the goosebumps there for a second, because hearing stories like that to me are really impressive, because it's not always the glitz and the glory that everyone wants to hear, but it's kind of the saying of, the wounded scars and how you heal. And you overcame a lot, and it shows the mentality that you had. You were hell-bent on something, and it shows that you really wanted to go for something. And to have Tony respect you that much is such a high honor. And so that's pretty amazing just to hear your side of it. It's very, very cool. So yeah. But going back a little bit, I know you mentioned you were kind of starting to coach in '92, right after you graduated. You were also going through your doctorate. You were then on the national team again. We were talking about balancing all that. So, of course, when was it the moment you noticed that you really loved coaching and that was going to be your profession? Like what year? When was it? When did it click for you? And when did that passion really kind of come out of you?
It wasn't so. When I coached at Virginia, it was really I was a glorified player coach. Like I just was there playing in and I offered insight when I could, but really wasn't in the scope of coaching. I wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot of coaching. I was playing more. So it was just fun being in the college environment. Really, it was about, and even my first head coaching job at 26. So this whole ACL thing was interesting because I went back to Virginia to rehab for part of the time, and the head coaching job at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, up, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, you interested in coaching?" I'm like, I don't think so, but maybe right now it'd be like something to do. So while I'm rehab, I remember walking in. I got the job. I don't know how, because I really didn't. I was 26 years old and head coach, and I remember crutching into the office because it was post op a week or something. And I'm crutching into the office on drugs and trying to figure out this coaching thing with very little resources and a very part-time one assistant who was very part-time. So that was a really interesting time. I didn't fall in love with coaching then. I had a great time, but I wasn't still then. I was there for 2 seasons. I wasn't planning on coaching still. It wasn't until I was at University of Central Florida in '99. That was kind of after my national team career. I didn't make the '99 team. I was down in Florida because I was in training camps in and out. And a friend of mine who's now at Auburn, Karen Hoppe, she was leaving UCF, and she's like, "Hey, you gonna get into coaching again?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I don't think so." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to Auburn. It'd be cool for another female to take over this job." So again, it was one of those. It's kind of like these things kind of just fell in my lap a little bit with other people kind of telling me about things. And but then now at 29, I'm now the head coach at UCF, and after that first season was when I kind of felt like, oh, this is something maybe is my calling kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah. I think that I totally relate to that. I've been playing since I was forever. And then finally now we're starting this Bellatech, and it's kind of a combination now of both coaching and playing, which is why I really was looking forward to this conversation, because you do have such a career in a combination of both. Obviously, your opportunities were limited at an early age, but anyway, so I think that here at Bellatech, we have this calling for being a positive female role model for not just young women, but women in general. I think it's good to see women in a powerful position who are confident and winning at a consistent rate. And not only that, but uplifting other women at the same time. So you mentioned that you had some great female coaches, which I think is incredible. Me and Margie have both had some fantastic female coaches. Who else were maybe your role models?
Like I mentioned, family members, definitely my coaches. Lauren Gregg at Virginia, she ended up being an assistant on the national team as well. She was huge. But other teammates like Michelle Akers and just Carla Overbeck, players I was around on a daily basis and year after year. I was on the national team for like 7-8 years, so they become family, and also just people you really want to emulate and look up to. And then I got into after I took the UCF job. Fast forward 2 years, and the pro league starts, the first pro league, the NWSL, and so I go down to the combine thinking, I haven't played, on the national team for 3 years, or I guess it was a good 2 years. And I go down to the combine, do well, and I get drafted by the Washington Freedom, basically my hometown, team. And so that, so then you get into that environment, and I played pro and coached at the same time. So I kept my job at UCF and did both, and I was back and forth. And it was during that time that I really kind of learned a lot of kind of what not to do as a coach. Some things I didn't really love. I was in 3 different teams in 3 years, and so I picked up some of the positives and made sure I noted some of the negatives that I wanted to become more of a player's coach again, and really see things from their perspective. But along the way, I mean, Tony DeChico is such a huge influence. Anson Dorrance, obviously I mentioned Lauren, but even my high school coaches, I'm still I still communicate with them on a somewhat regular basis. I go back to Virginia to see my family, and I'll see my high school coach. And I was recently inducted into my high school Hall of Fame. That was a year ago, fall, I think. And Lauren Gregg came and did my induction speech, and it was amazing. So all these women in my life are still part of it, and it's been fun to then for them to see kind of where I am and kind of like know that they had, they had something to do with it. They had a huge influence on it. And it makes me feel good that they know that and they can feel proud about that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, not everyone has the opportunity to have such powerful, strong female influences all the time. It's in such a niche market with the soccer world. I mean, we do see it more prevalent and dominated by males. Of course, that's changing slowly, but changing. To have female role models and coaches, but it's really cool to hear that you were able to have the opportunity to have such large influences in your life throughout your life too, because sometimes it takes a little bit longer for people. I know Nancy, you can probably speak on it a little bit. Have you ever had a female coach before?
I actually have not. Yeah, I know we've, talking to a few other people, a lot like Carol and Margie have been lucky enough to have female coaches. I never have had, not in my youth career, not in college, not post-college, professionally. It's always been male. So yeah, I haven't had that, opportunity to be, with a female coach. But it doesn't change anything for me. Obviously I think it would have been nice to have that experience, but it's great to see other women doing that. And, you see how inspirational you can be even to youth and just in your college coaching career. I'm sure you get a lot of your players that look up to you and have conversations outside of the field that you may not be able to relate with the male coaches. So I think that's great.
Sorry, Carol, do you have something to say?
Sorry, I was just also going to touch on really quick that I think that's a good point you make, that it was a lot of the women directly around you that influenced you in such a positive way. Outside of Bellatech, I knew Margie and Nancy totally in separate dynamics with separate teams and did totally different things. And they both had inspired me so much at those points. I've known Margie for 10 years. We played in college together. Nancy, just a few years ago, we played in this Adidas sponsored tournament, and I have tremendously changed as a player because of both of these people. And so yeah, I just wanted to touch on that really quick, because that was a really great point, that it's people directly around you that are, if you're surrounding yourself with powerful women, you're inevitably going to emulate that and hopefully translate that into your life as well. So.
We want to transition. Oh, sorry. What was that, Amanda?
I was going to say, I was lucky enough to play once I went in the pros with some amazing international women that I never would have had that opportunity to get close to them. So players I had played against, and now teammates with Hamari Sawa, a bunch of Brazilians. I played with almost all the Brazilians, but just seeing them and how they, their professionalism and how they approach the game, that was awesome. That was one of the most favorite things from the league, and also why, I played with Washington, Atlanta, and San Jose, and it was kind of a bummer to get to the West Coast when I was still coaching and stuff. But the perspectives I got from all three teams were fantastic. So in the end, it may have been a good thing for me as a person and a coach to get all three perspectives from different coaching, different teammates, different environments and stuff. But I loved playing with all of those players and being able to just share the field with them.
Yeah, that's very cool. It's definitely a nice learning experience and helps you be more of a kind of well-rounded and open-minded person. I totally agree with that. We actually want to talk a little bit, obviously, about your advocacy for equal rights and women's empowerment. We know that you had experience with the Sports United Sports Envoy program, things like that. How are you currently still advocating for equal rights and empowering female athletes, not just your own? And I'm sure you have definitely a direct relationship and effect on younger athletes. So what are you currently doing to really push for that equal rights movement?
Well, like you mentioned, going on those tours with the State Department and going into other countries and really trying to empower women and girls through sport, and specifically soccer, is huge. So I try to do that when I can. Unfortunately, none of those trips happened this year because of COVID. But I have an all-female staff, and I plan on trying to keep that as long as I have the people that can fill those roles, but I love that. And I want to keep on giving young coaches, whether it's a little mentorship or just opportunities by being, coming around our program, and whether it's just kind of dipping into what we do, and just giving them some education of sorts, and knowing that all these coaches that need to stay in the game need to be supported, and know they just need a shot sometimes. So like my former volunteer assistants, or really both women that are now my full-time assistants, Jane Alaconis and Sam Green, they both started on my staff in non-paid roles. And I think that's really important to whether you're a guy or a girl or a woman, man or a woman, to know, like, sometimes you just go bide your time and get in there and grind it out. And they both, like, Sam went from a director of ops to a volunteer to now my recruiting coordinator, assistant coach recruiting coordinator, and Jane went from a volunteer to assistant coach. Because coaches, my other coaches, Lou Lieberman's now the head coach at San Diego, another female head coach. Jenny Binden's now the head coach at LMU, another female head coach that were both on my staff. So it's like it's good. You can pass them on, and then give these other ones opportunities to get into the mix. So I'm really proud of about that. And I brought Saskia Weber, a former national team teammate, in to be the volunteer goalkeeper coach. So Saskia wasn't in the college game. She's been coaching club and stuff, but I want to, if she does want to get in the college game, I wanted to give her an opportunity. So, those kind of things, and just encouraging our players to coach, get out there and coach, and give back to the game, and do what you can. We've led the women's march out here. Our team was invited to be in the front of the parade march. So it's not just to be about, women's rights. It's been about rights for everybody and social justice and equality. So our team was the only team thus far to have kneeled at UCLA during the anthem. We started that 3 years ago. I think it was after Trump called NFL players sons of bitches, and one of my players just had enough, and she couldn't do it, and said she had to kneel, and we supported that, and figured out as a team how to come alongside her and listen. Most importantly is listen, and then show our support either by kneeling as well, or standing there arm in arm. And so it's been really cool. Like the team has been very conscious and aware of social issues, and we will continue to fight a good fight.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially now in the times we're in, is having those educational pieces and informing the players. And then, like you said, I think listening is the biggest part. And I think it's amazing that you're able to sit there and leave an open platform for your players to really speak out and be who they want to be, and feel what they want to feel, and be okay and be comfortable with that. And then also lend, a hand if they are struggling with it, because that's the thing, I think, growing up as females, if you're seen as strong or outspoken or anything, excuse my language, you're seen as a bitch, right? And the connotation on that is always going to be different, and people are going to judge you for that. But I think more and more pushing these female athletes to step out of their comfort zones and speak their mind, and feel confident and enough to be able to go ahead and do that, is really, really cool to hear. I mean, it's something I think probably all of us has struggled with once or twice in our life. But I know people like you, like we said, having female role models in our life. I mean, I've been confident enough to not have to have to not be scared to just speak when I don't think things are right. And agree when things are right though also. And so it's really amazing to be able to know that obviously people like you are just fighting for that equality and pushing female into the workforce, especially with coaching in the NCAA, since it's such a small fraction. So we're hopefully slowly getting there.
Yeah, I think you said it best, that we need more people like yourself, Amanda, to really allow not only athletes, but, in your situation, of course, you're giving these women the opportunity to express themselves and what they believe in, and use their platform. And, and then it allows everyone else to kind of educate themselves more on what's going on, around us. So if we can kind of continue with that.
I happen to have this on today.
Yes.
Love it. We love to see it. We love to see it. That's awesome.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So Amanda, what advice would you, would you give to other young women who are seeking to maybe just grow in their personal lives, maybe aren't in the soccer community or in the soccer world, or even just any athletic pursuits? What advice would you give to those people who are, I guess, like on a journey to finding their path and figuring it out, I guess you could say?
Uh-oh, is she frozen?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
We're good now.
As a young athlete, I would encourage them to play as many sports as possible. Don't specialize too early. See what they love. Get into the arts, music, whatever it might be. Just discover where their passions may lie. It might be something to do with science or math or whatever it is. When I was little, I went to horse camp. I loved horses and I loved horseback riding. Maybe that would have taken me a different place if I, did it more, or, you just never know. But I'd say just try to discover everything there is, and be open to all different pursuits. And then, athletically, once you do find something you love, and you just have to be committed to it, and know, if getting a scholarship's the goal, then educate yourself, and don't think your club coaches are going to do it or your parents are going to do it. Like, I'm working with a group right now. There's a website about to be relaunched called College Committed, and it's just for female soccer players to help them find the right fit for them. So, a lot of recruits are like, oh, I want to go to UCLA, I want to go to Stanford, I want to go to UNC or Virginia. So there's a lot of other options. And so it's just about making sure players know that there's D1, D2, D3, there's junior college, there's AIA, there's a lot of reasons to go to different schools, location, academically, level of play, whatever it might be. And so what I love about the College Committed site is that it helps them educate themselves. There's webinars and articles, and there's a University Explorer, and there's a matching component. So there's all these things that I think these young athletes need to take this process in their own hands and take initiative, whatever it is they want to do. And if playing college soccer is one of the things, then educate yourself and take initiative, and figure out a way to get that scholarship or get that academic scholar, get admitted into one of the top schools.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. We actually were at a camp yesterday, and we're speaking to young female athletes ages like about 13 to 16 years old. And one of the girls actually asked, what should I do if I do want to go into colleges and get a scholarship and all of that? And we told her that there isn't just one single plan that works for every single person. You got to find the right fit for you. You got to know what reasons, what are your priorities, and what are the things that you don't are absolutely not okay for you, and what are the things that are, that you can compromise on. So I think that's great advice, and I think every athlete or even just anyone will figure it out. But I hope that they do launch that site soon if they're in the works of that.
Yeah, they are. They just my assistant is the one that developed it, but now that she's with me at UCLA, she can't necessarily be involved in the day-to-day because it's recruiting. You can't talk to certain players and all that. So she has people taking it over. So Going to relaunch it, and it's a great site. I love everything about it, and it's so good for just letting them go through the process. Starts with like 8th grade, and it gives you like almost like a checklist of what to do and stay on track. And it's not just about committing as a 9th grader. And the recruiting rules have changed, so they really shouldn't be committing that early anymore. And they should be doing more of the process. And I was curious, who's having camps? Were you in front of kids like live or?
Yeah, so they were it was actually not like a contact, it was a finishing camp. So they were just doing a bunch of finishing, and there was maybe about like 5 or 6 girls. So we went out there and had a chat with them, took a few shots ourselves, and yeah, that was it. And that's
where was this?
San Fernando Valley, so out here in like Glendale, in the Glendale area.
Who was running it?
It's Sol V. I can use Solve. Yeah, I'm sorry. I always do that. Solve. I'll send you some information if you're interested. But yeah, it was mostly like a youth camp, boys and girls, outdoors, of course, on the field, and yeah,
Some clubs are starting back. I know the LA Breakers that Jane coaches with. They started back up like a week ago, but they've already closed back down because one of the 05 boys that was feeling sick went to practice. He knew he was feeling sick. He went to practice anyway, and then turns out he was positive for COVID.
Yeah, and some of the girls,
people aren't going to be responsible and not going to.
Yeah, it's such a tough place to be in right now. Some of the girls that we talked to actually said that their club teams have actually been practicing for I think since June. One of them said they've been holding practices. So yeah,
Crazy times.
Keep an eye out for that college committed website. I think that's a great one to let a lot of these players know about and kind of spread that.
Yeah, it's just collegecommitted.com, but I think it should be up in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
That's great. All right, Amanda. So just before we head off, we like to end on some fun little games because that's just what we do sometimes. I may or may not have heard and done some research, aka stalked your Instagram profile, because that's what you just have to do sometimes to learn about people. And we heard that you like dogs because we love dogs. We are massive dog. Oh, you got your dog with you?
Well, she was sleeping right there. I guess she got up.
Oh, okay, it's okay because we have a little surprise because we have a picture right here of her.
Oh, babies!
I stole this off your Instagram. I hope you don't sue me for copyright.
That's awesome.
Okay, so this is your dog.
She's wearing the shirt. I don't know if you. It says
strong. Is she?
Our rowing coach was battling cancer, and they had an event for her. So I ran down to the marina, and they gave me a shirt, and I put it on her.
That's awesome. We love it. We love it. We love it. We love to see it. So the game we're gonna play with you right now is guess which Bella Techers pupper this is. So we're gonna hold up, or I'm gonna hold up, a picture of one of our dogs. The picture that I hold up, you're gonna have to guess which one of us it is. So whether it's me, Carolyn, or Nancy. Okay.
Mark, make sure you like narrate it when you hold it up so that it like stays on your screen,
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Margaret, what's your nickname?
Margie.
What?
Margie.
Margie?
Yeah. I know. It's hard to remember. It doesn't stick. So I just go by Margaret.
You go by Margaret or Margie?
As I'm getting older right now, it's just a lot easier to go with Margaret at first. And then people always ask me, oh, but like, do you have a shorter name? I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you for asking. But yeah, Margie is the one I go through in my common day-to-day. It's just easier sometimes to introduce as Margaret because people always botch the name. So I've gotten used to it. So first round, okay, I'm going to hold this dog up and you're just going to have to guess it. We'll give you like 10 seconds to guess it. How about that? Okay. All right, ready? And round one, whose dog is this?
That's Nancy's.
Woo! Wow! That was is.
Wow.
You like it right away. No, I have to
You just
change
do
it.
it right away.
We like it. All
I
right.
haven't stopped
Right,
you
that's
on.
my like he's my horse. He's like 200 pounds, but he's such
Oh
a
my
big
gosh.
bear.
What kind of dog is it?
He's an Armenian Shepherd. We actually
Wow.
yeah, he's a big guy, but he's a total lover. He likes to hug people, and because we taught him that way, which is not a good idea with strangers, but he'll like jump up on our shoulders, give us a hug.
Love it.
So
That's
he's a big guy.
awesome.
All right. Round 2.
It's a 50-50 shot here.
Whose dog is this?
Get a little lower.
Lower? Oh, I can't even see it there.
There you go.
That'd be Carolyn.
That's correct.
Oh,
Well,
got this,
obviously we
100%.
already know who the last one is. You're too good
I
at
want to
this
see
game.
it still
Wow.
though.
Okay, yeah, you have to. There's actually 2 of them.
Oh my gosh. So I had Goldens before Bailey. My 2 dogs were Goldens.
They're
Oh.
sweethearts. They're definitely not this small anymore. This is just the best picture I could find of them, of like being still together. So they're very, very, very cute dogs, very loving. They get me through everything. I miss them. They're up in Northern California now, not in Southern California with me, which is a bummer. So I think that was probably one of the most accurate rounds we probably could ever play.
Yeah.
That game. You do like your dogs, so it's confirmed.
And that was quick.
You're highly successful on the field, but if it comes to matching dogs with their owners, we know who to go to.
Yeah, you could make a career out of that. But Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so inspired by your journey. To all of our subscribers at Bella Tech, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this was an enlightening conversation for you. And tune in next time for another riveting episode.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks so
Bye.
much, Amanda. We really appreciate your time.
yeah.
Welcome.
Have a good one. Stay safe.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.